Hello everybody, Raven Knight here. Well, it's happened guys. We're getting a brand new hero in For Honor, the Virtuosa. Guys, I got a lot to say about this new hero. I've got a lot of things I want to say about her. Here's the first thing I want to say. Thank you, Ubisoft, for giving me early access to the hero. That's right, guys. I got to try her out earlier, and I must say that she is absolutely outstanding. I mean it. After playing her for 2 weeks, I can straight up say she is a phenomenal character. I love her. I love playing her. I love her personality. I love everything about her. Yes, I know. Go ahead. Hit me up in the comments, laugh at me if you want to, because I know what you're going to say. You see, Raven, the rapier did work in For Honor. You were wrong, man. Okay, all right. For those of you who don't know, in the past, way back in the past, people asked me what I would think about a rapier hero in For Honor. And I always said the same thing. I don't want to see that because I don't see the rapier as a good weapon to use in a medieval fighting setting like For Honor. You got to realize that the rapier is a dueling weapon meant for one-on-one engagements. It was not something used in medieval warfare that much, if at all, because the rapier was not a weapon that could withstand the kind of punishment that long swords, halberds, kanabo, and other weapons like them could. So I didn't think it would make a lot of practical or realistic sense to add a rapier. I just didn't think that would be a good idea, but people kept saying, oh no man, we want to see our Three Musketeers, we want to see our Princess Bride, we want to see our Zorro character, and I get it, the rule of cool and all that, but it was just never something that I was super excited about. And now, here I am, looking at a rapier hero and going, oh dude, it's so awesome, I love her. So you're probably all going, yeah, see, admit you're wrong, Raven. Well, you know what? Fair enough. Part of having integrity is admitting when you're wrong. You've gotta be big enough to admit when you make a mistake and when you're wrong. So, I'll go ahead and say, I'm not wrong. I still stand by everything I said before. From a historical and practical standpoint, the rapier is not a good medieval battlefield weapon. That was always my point and always what I was trying to convey. I knew that if the rapier were added, For Honor would make it work through game logic and mechanics, as they've done with every weapon they've added. But my point was that from a practical, realistic, and historical sense, it's not a good weapon for the kind of setting For Honor exists in. That was always my point. That was always what I was trying to say. I was not saying it couldn't work. I was saying I don't think it's realistic or practical. There. I'm not wrong. I'm not saying that we can't have it or that I wouldn't enjoy it. I'm just saying it wasn't what I was excited to see. But with that all being said, can we put all that aside for a second? The way they implemented the rapier in-game is incredibly unique and incredibly complex. And I mean that. The hero is complex and requires a lot of practice to get the hang of. I'll go into her moveset a little bit later, but I should stress before we get there, I'm hardly the best resource when it comes to balancing and details about gameplay. I'm more of a lore and history guy, as you know, so let's start with that, because what I really love about this character is not her weapon. It's her history and lore. Let's talk about this. Let's start with her history. Virtuosa is the feminine version of the Italian noun virtuoso. If you want the plural feminine form, it's virtuose, if you were wondering. But anyway, a virtuosa is most often a term referring to a female professional expert in a certain field of art, usually music. And we'll get into that because that ties into her historical reference. This Italian name is fitting as the virtuosa in For Honor speaks Italian and wears Renaissance attire. The rapier, which is her primary weapon, is a weapon that has its origins in Spain and Italy. Now, from a historical standpoint, I'll have to do a tad more research just to be safe, but I would argue that she is heavily based on nobility of the Renaissance period, in fact, a very specific noblewoman who we'll get to. Unfortunately, I will admit a lot of my medieval knowledge starts to taper off about this point, so I'll need to do more reading, and if the devs on the Warriors didn't give any specifics and verify my thoughts, I'll take all that into account. I am, after all, recording this before the den. But fundamentally, on the weapon, a rapier was a duelist weapon, a tool for the common man so that they had a method of self-defense on the street. It was light, easy to use, and more affordable than a longsword. However, there were those who turned their dueling skills into an art form, taking pride in their swordsmanship and prepared to fight duels of honor as much for their own pride and a chance for glory than anything else. Now, on to who she's based on historically. Allow me to go ahead and address what many of you will say. Why is she female gender locked? Well, get this, guys. I'm about to blow your mind. I have absolutely no issues with this. As a matter of fact, this may be one of the more appropriate instances of a female gender locking in the whole game. Not only is the rapier an excellent weapon for women to wield, given its lightweight, ease of use, and elegant proficiencies, but historically there were many women throughout Europe who trained in fencing. It was not at all uncommon for women in Italy, England, France, or even America to train in the way of fencing, especially with the slow rise of feminist ideals and the fact that dueling was becoming less and less about warfare and more about matters of honor. Some famous examples of women duelists include the Comtesse de Saint-Belmont, Isabella de Carracci, the Comtesse de Polignac, Caterina Sforza, Marta Duran, and perhaps, most famously, Julie d'Aubigny. And I'd be willing to wager that that's who they drew inspiration from this character. Yes, I believe that Julie d'Aubigny was the primary inspiration for this character. Let's talk a little bit about Julie. Julie d'Aubigny is hailed today as a figure representing both women's empowerment, queer representation, as she was openly bisexual and a cross-dresser, as well as a patron of the arts, singing, and opera. It should be stated that we don't know a great deal about her life for certain, as a lot of it is shrouded in a lot of rumor, hearsay, and myth, but there are some things we do know. Julie d'Aubigny was born in the late 17th century to Gaston d'Aubigny, who was responsible for training the French court's pages. As a result, he trained Julie in several arts and practices that were usually reserved for men, including fencing, which she apparently took to quickly and was, at a young age, able to duel on par with several men her age. The rest of her youth was spent kind of being a rebel and, honestly, a criminal. After a short affair with a fellow fencer and performer, she had another affair with a young girl. The girl's parents tried to separate the two by sending their daughter to a convent. In response, according to records, Julie snuck in, helped the girl escape, took the body of a dead nun, put it in the girl's bed to fake her death, lit the room on fire to further sell it, and ran off with her lover. This affair lasted for a few months before the girl went back to her parents. Julie was then accused of kidnapping, arson, body snatching, and vandalism. And she was charged as a male, mind you, since she was famous for dressing as a man. They kind of assumed, like, hey, if you're going to behave like a man, you get to be sentenced like a man. And she was sentenced to death by burning. But she escaped the law by fleeing to Paris, where she met another lover named Comte d'Albert, whom she first bested at a duel and then nursed him back to health, and then would go on to join the opera. From there, the story of her life becomes rife with uncertainties. We have records of her fighting in several duels, including one famously where she dueled 3 men in one evening as they were offended that she openly flirted with and kissed another girl at a party. However, what we do know is that she continued to perform opera in performances all the way up to 1705, where she was hailed as having one of the most beautiful voices in the world. But then in 1705, after the death of her lover, Madame de Marquis Florensac, she decided to retire to a convent. For real. Perhaps she simply sought an escape from the world. Perhaps she had a crisis of faith. Perhaps she simply wanted to get a clean start to her life. Perhaps she wanted to make up for all the wrongs or things she'd done in the past. We don't know why she chose to retire to a convent in 1705. All we do know is that while staying in this convent, she would die 2 years later at the age of 33. Now, the illusion's connections to Julie are numerous. For one is her playful and boisterous nature, which Julie was known for, her willingness to dress as a man without hiding her feminine physique or wiles, because Julie did not dress as a man to hide her identity, she did it to make a statement. Even the menu music has her singing. Which could be a reference to her opera background. In fact, virtuosa. Virtuosa means one who is gifted or extremely talented in an art form, usually music. Well, that connects to Julie d'Aubigny being an opera singer. However, there is one major issue with the connection to Julie d'Aubigny, and I'll bet you guys saw it too. The virtuosa is Italian, while Julie was French. It is my belief that the virtuosa took inspiration and reference from female fencers throughout European history, but they drew on the specific characterization and attitude of Julie d'Aubigny, which honestly isn't a bad place to draw it from. She's a famous and slightly legendary female duelist, but she's hardly the only one, and I think it's important to recognize others. I will do a full Heroes in History breakdown on not only Julie d'Aubigny, but some other female duelists in history to see how they connect to the virtuosa, but what I really want to get across here is that the virtuosa gives off an absolutely awesome personality, awesome appearance, awesome overall just persona, for lack of a better word. Now, with the history out of the way, let's take a look at the lore. The lore of the virtuosa is admittedly a little weak. It all begins with a specific girl named Ilaria, who honed her skills on the mean streets of Heathmore. She would later join up with Captain Coalhart's crew, and through her adventures with him, would better learn the ways of combat and fighting. Her skill and glory attracted a new generation of young fighters to her, and they became known as the Virtuosas. Intent on perfecting their skills, they fought without any higher calling or necessity, but rather for the thrill of victory, of improvement, and of elegance. Every duel is a new challenge or puzzle to overcome, and a new chance to demonstrate their brilliance to others. So, what's wrong with this lore? Well, a few things. Shall I list them? Number one, if Ilaria was originally from Heathmore, where in Heathmore was she from? Was she from Ashfeld? The name would indicate as such, so why would she not be considered a knight? In fact, given some of her armor options, she probably should have been a knight. In fact, why wasn't Griffin, who wears armor from various cultures, made an outlander, and she made a knight? That would have only made more sense. Number two, how did she meet Coalhart? Was he in Heathmore before? Why did he leave Heathmore? What brought him back to Heathmore? How did he reach Ashfeld to find this girl? Why would he let this girl join his crew? That doesn't make a lot of sense to me, which leads into number three. If Coalhart is such an unlucky bastard and always seems to lose, how did Ilaria grow a reputation under him? Was she his spit of good luck? And for that matter, why would people flock to her? What kinds of people? Other young girls who wanted a challenge? Usually people become disciples of those they admire, sure, but if her only goal is to improve her fighting skills, why take on students? And again, why would these girls come from all over to join her? You can't make the argument that Heathmore is just a place of misogyny where women can't do anything. There are plenty of women warriors in Heathmore, so that's definitely not true. So where are all these women warriors coming from wanting to learn under her? That doesn't make a lot of sense unless they come from areas outside of Heathmore, but I don't know about that. They don't make that clear. And then much of the Virtuosa's armor appears knight originated, as I said, so again, why not make her a knight? That would have just made more sense. She's got the arms and equipment, which leads to my final question, where does she get her arms and equipment? If she's just a wandering warrior who just wants to hone her craft, where is she getting these expensive and very detailed-looking arms and armor? A little questionable to me, especially if we argue that Ilaria, the first Virtuosa, is somehow a street rat. Where'd she get the money for this? Where'd she get the funds for this? Coalhart? Is that one of his bad luck pieces? She stole all of his money? That would actually be hilarious. Don't get me wrong, I don't think her lore is all bad, but in fact, I'd have to give some credit to the motivation. There are warriors and fighters out there who don't necessarily fight for country, God, money, or morals, but because they enjoy it and like self-improvement. The only problem with this here is that Heathmore, as well as the world, I'd wager, is a world steeped in war, turmoil, and where cultures and countries are struggling to survive. The pleasure and thrill of combat, such as it is, probably isn't the primary goal of all the Virtuosa. I find it hard to believe all Virtuosae share the same carefree and thrill-seeking attitude of their mentor. In fact, again, given that Ilaria got her start as a street rat fighting for her daily bread, I imagine she may have higher aspirations. It's all speculation on my part, and it's just understating characterization at this point. That's what it really comes down to, but nothing entirely wrong with it. It's still serviceable. I just think it could have been a lot better. Okay, so now that I've bored you to tears with all this stuff that you probably don't care about, let's talk about what you do care about, the hero herself. Let me again emphasize how adorable this hero is. Unlike Pirate or Varangian, which many folks claimed looked too androgynous, there's no androgyny with the Virtuosa. She is a cutie patootie in every way. In fact, to highlight her cute girly attitude, they did not AI generate her facial expressions, but added unique hand-handled facial animations, allowing her to make many unique facial expressions like winking, smirking, laughing, and smiling broadly. This makes her one of the most expressive of all the cast, and honestly, it fits. From her movement animations to her facial animations, this character has personality, and I love it. She makes a statement with every move she makes and every laugh she gives. Her emotes and her signature are no different, being very cocky, brash, and even childish at times, making her a real treat to use in the game.
What? You boys are all the same.
As for her executions, well, I've got a graded video coming out soon for that, so stay tuned. But just know that I love all of them. They're all really good, but they will all get their own grades, so stay tuned. Her fashion is very cool as well. I had a lot of fun playing with her various designs, but these are my favorites. There's just not enough steel for me to make everything I want, though, sad as it is. But trust me, once I get the character live in-game, I'll be working hard to make some of these builds, because they're just so adorable. We've got the pink Mary Jane Watson. We've got the female gender bent Peter Pan, which I don't know why I thought that'd be funny. It just was. We've got a character right out of Elden Ring. I forget her name now. Someone's going to correct me in the comments. I deeply apologize. And then we've got my personal favorite one here, who I haven't given a name to, but she might get her own legend. I love this design. And now, at long last, gameplay. I said it before, I'll say it a million times. I'm not an expert in balancing and gameplay, but I will do the best I can. Virtuosa may be one of the most complex heroes in the cast. If you're just a tanky player like Shugoki or Hitakiri, you will not enjoy this hero. She is highly technical, built around strategy and a very wide toolkit. If you think you can pick up this character and just mash buttons and win, you are mistaken. When you perform an attack, you will enter a pose, depending on the direction you threw the attack. A left attack puts you in swarm pose, a top attack puts you in duel pose, and a right attack puts you in guard pose. No matter what pose you take, you will automatically evade any attack thrown at you, whether it's a light, heavy, bash, unblockable, or even a minion attack. That's right, even minions can't touch you while in a pose. The only vulnerabilities in this pose are either undodgeable attacks or guard breaks. Think of the pose like a form of all guard. While in it, you don't block damage, you just evade it. Also, like an all guard, you have a quick response. If you evade an opponent's attack, you can perform a very fast light attack, riposte, which is unblockable, and you'll immediately free flow into the pose from the direction you sent that attack. Keep in mind, though, that unlike all guards, you do not regain stamina while in a pose. So while you stay in the pose, your stamina does not regain on its own, and you have to keep that in mind. A follow-up attack from these stances, regardless of direction, will have different properties, so keep these properties in mind. From the guard stance, a right attack has crush and counter properties, making you able to crush and counter your opponent. A heavy attack has hyper armor, allowing you to trade blows. A bash from the guard stance is a wide sweeping kick, which does not guarantee any damage, but can displace opponents and can grant a wall splat, which guarantees a heavy. From the duel stance, a light attack is 400 milliseconds as opposed to 500 milliseconds from other sides. A heavy attack is unblockable, but the bash from the duel stance is a fast kick which guarantees a light but is dodgeable. And from swarm stance, a light attack applies bleed and a heavy attack causes extra damage but is slower, and your bash is a pinning move that does minor damage. Now keep in mind this. It does not matter from which direction you throw the attack. It only matters what pose you were in. So if I am in a swarm stance, which means I entered on the left-hand side, but I throw my attack on the right-hand side, it will still have the property as if I was on the left-hand side. Does that make sense? If it doesn't, just keep watching the footage, you'll see it. You have the potential for infinite combos by throwing lights and heavies again and again and again and again, entering different poses each time, and changing the nature of your attacks as required. But get this! On the second heavy of any combo, you can soft feint a light or a heavy from another direction, and then the attack that you throw will carry the property of the pose directed in question. So, for example, if I soft feint a left heavy into a top heavy, the resulting top heavy will become unblockable like I threw it from duelist stance. Does that confuse you? It confused me too. But there's even more than that. Virtuosa's dodge light attack is omnidirectional. That means she can throw her dodge light from the top, right, or left regardless of the direction of her dodge. Further, when she performs this, it can put her into pose right away. Are you seeing now why this character is so complex? Yeah, I am too. She was a very difficult character to get the hang of, and as you're probably watching from the footage, I got to play with a break and run and King Angelus and a few others as I was practicing with this character and getting the hang of her. She was very difficult for me to learn, and I lost a lot of times because I was having so much trouble understanding the technical nature of her movesets. But I did pull out a few wins as well, and I am starting to get the hang of her, so I really look forward to taking her out into the actual battlefield proper with everyone else.
Stay here. No, the Buffy Man. Well, he's married to the Muffin Man. The Muffin Man? Okay. No, no, please. Please. Yeah, you like my stand pressure I don't have anymore? Thanks, Ubi. Not draw heavy. And he parries it. No, kicks are illegal!
Victory!
You cheated. Cheater! You got wall hack. Ouchie! Wall hacks ain't bot. Cheater! I guess always this game is rude. Rigged, I tell you! Here! Ow.
Victory!
Everybody, he's teabagging me. How toxic he is. Look.
But I will say a few things that she struggles in. For example, when she throws a bash, it does not automatically put her back into a pose stance. So you have to be aware of that. You can't just throw a bash and then think you're in the pose stance and just automatically evade everything. Also, you need to be careful. If you just constantly spam lights over and over and over again, you can end up being caught by a dodge attack. Also, don't think you can evade everything. Like I said, undodgeable attacks like Nobushi's second heavy or Warmonger's dash forward heavy can hit you even in your pose stance, so do not let yourself get too comfortable. Also, she does struggle a little bit in ganking situations. Her zone attack can push opponents back, but it doesn't do any damage. It only guarantees a light, and while she can cancel the bash to do a guard break, which I use to much good effect during some of my battles, it is not something that is a verified way to create an advantage. It merely creates distance between you and your opponent. So, she struggles a little bit in the counter gank, and her bashes don't allow her to go back into her pose, and you can't just spam attacks over and over and over again without understanding their properties. So she has some weaknesses, but overall I think she's a very fun and unique character to play. But that's not even talking about her unique feats, which, I won't lie, are a bit busted. Let's talk about these feats briefly. Virtuosa's first feat lets her automatically enter a stance without throwing an attack once every 20 seconds. So basically, I could be in my normal stance, and then I just press this button, I automatically go into a pose. That's not so bad on its own. But her second feat, which activates every 30 seconds, allows her to heal a little when she enters a pose stance, meaning she can heal reactively through her stances. Yes, that means that she can heal herself each time she enters a pose, which she does automatically after throwing any attack. Through this, she can basically heal indefinitely. Her third feat makes it so that you can perform a riposte, and the opponent you struck takes extra damage for a short period. That one's not so bad. And then her fourth feat, the most broken of all, allows her to heal all of her allies by 80 points, no matter where they are, and gives them a defense buff. That one's busted and needs to be nerfed. So overall, what I will say is that I think that Virtuosa is a lot of fun to play in her toolkit alone, but her feats need some tweaking. Now, I want to stress, I greatly enjoy Virtuosa. She is currently one of my favorite characters from personality alone, and I'm already coming up with a legend for mine. I think she's a fascinating addition to For Honor, and I can't wait to take her out onto the field with you guys. So that's all I have to say about this hero right now, guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was very long, but I had a lot I wanted to say. I want to thank Ubisoft again for giving me early access to the hero. I also want to thank A Break and Run, Raptor Rex, King Angelus, and Taquito TK for joining me for some matches and helping me get footage. You guys were awesome. Big thanks to all of you. In fact, another huge thanks to A Break and Run for helping me to practice with the hero and help teach me the basics of her. Believe it or not, I actually beat him a few times in our duels, but only a few times. He still destroyed me more often than not. But hey, through failure comes wisdom. Maybe that's why I'm not so smart. I'm just a massive failure. Facts. Anyway, thank you guys so much. Looking forward to the new hero coming out. Hope you guys will join me on the battlefield. And as always, I will see you in my next video. Take care.